Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to Upticks with Jake and Corey. This is episode 266. Corey, welcome back to the show.
Jake, thanks for having me.
Anything new or interesting before we dive into today's topics?
Yeah, briefly, my wife, Cassie, and I were out in Sonoma last week, California, for 3 nights, visiting some clients that retired and moved out there back in 2016. So that we had a great weather. And great
why
trip.
don't you call it Napa? A lot of people call it Napa. Why do you call it Sonoma?
Napa and Sonoma are 2 different places.
Oh, okay. So you're being exact. I think a lot of people refer to that part of the country as Napa Valley.
I think you're probably right, which is probably a lot of people in Sonoma that might offend. but but yes, so we were out there for a few nights. It was great to see some clients that retired all the way back now in 2016. Moved out there.
Did you go to the Williams Sonoma original store?
No, we did not.
Have you been there?
No, I've never been.
I've been there. Rachel and I went there. It's pretty sweet, actually. It's the original Williams Sonoma. We rode bikes all through Sonoma, the city. I think it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
So good for you. I'm glad you had a good time and had a safe trip and without any major hiccups. And
yes,
I'm sure your client really appreciated you going out there to see them, which is very cool.
Absolutely.
Not a bad place for a client to retire to.
Not at all. Not bad at all.
You know, with me, I'm quickly reading through this book, Gambler by Billy Walters. And that guy's crazy, Corey. He's supposedly maybe one of the most successful gamblers of all time. And it's a really good book. I highly encourage people that are interested in those types of stories to check it out. It probably could be a movie. I bet it gets turned into a movie if I had to guess. Or I'm not betting if I had to guess. But I'm curious, Corey, are you a betting man?
No, I'm really not.
It's legal in Kansas.
No, I'm really not.
Yeah, you know, I used to bet lightly in college. But once I got into the real world and I started working hard for my money, I don't like to gamble at all. I think it's not my thing, really. This book is actually making me want to do it even less because the amount of work that this guy put in to do it right. It's almost like the amount of work that we do when we're analyzing stocks and bonds for clients actually is what he did in the sports betting world. So I can appreciate I can appreciate it from that end. Yeah, he's sports betting. Yeah, he did casino stuff too, but like finally he figured out that like if you can handicap and take all of the considerations, the weather, the injury reports, you know, all the data, home versus away, turf conditions, local news, all this stuff into consideration, he felt that he could predict the outcome of the game better than the odds makers. And so that's what he was basically doing.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it is interesting. So anyways, all right, so let's move into today's topics.
All right.
The first one here is how to borrow money in a high rate world. You know, right now, Corey, everybody knows that interest rates are much higher. So credit card interest is higher, mortgages are higher, bank loans are higher. There's still some ways out there, though, to borrow money. And I thought this article did a good job. Actually, it's pretty thorough. And I won't read the whole article, but I did want to highlight some points here, Corey, if you don't mind.
Please do.
So it said mortgages, car loans, and credit card debt became costlier for consumers since the Federal Reserve raised interest rates to the highest levels in 22 years. The Fed recently left rates unchanged to a range of 5.25 to 5.5. It's, you know, basically the economy is continuing to cool. But it says borrowers do have options in a high rate world, from traditional personal loans to new product offering short-term cash infusions at lower rates, Corey, than credit cards. Many of these services even provide short-term loans with no interest, which to me sounds too good to be true. But once fees are factored in, these options might not be cheaper than a standard credit card. So the first point I wanted to make in the article said is to compare these options, look at the fine print. Borrowers should do their own math before using any kind of credit, according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. To calculate the APR, add up the interest, charges, and fees, divide by the loan amount, and then divide that by how many days you have to pay it back. Then, Corey, multiply that by 365 days in a year and by 100 to get the percentage. That's a lot of math that I don't think the individuals out there will do. But quick rundown of some of the options out there. Credit cards, there are these buy now, pay later services. So you could think of that like, I think Nebraska Furniture Mart does a lot of that stuff. Advances on your paycheck, an arranged overdraft, and credit unions and personal loans. One of the contributors to the article said, money is boring and it's supposed to be boring. So keep it that way. Corey, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. So what were the recommendations? Well, recommendations is the wrong word, but the article was about how to borrow money in a high rate world. And I suppose that those are the options that are ultimately out there. But like, what about a mortgage, for example? What is somebody to do if they need a mortgage? And maybe this is your opinion, Jake.
Yeah, this would be more my opinion. I think, obviously, if you are looking to make a move, a real estate agent will say now is the best time to do it because they're confident that home prices ultimately go up over time, which has traditionally happened. So when I'm advising a client on a mortgage or moving homes, I encourage them to focus more on the price that they pay, not necessarily the mortgage rate. Because, ideally, if you're going to live in this house for 10, 20, 30 years, hopefully once rates rotate back, you can refinance at a lower rate. Now, that may take several years, but I really think it's more important that the price you pay for something, because the debt can be, again, hopefully refinanced. Maybe you can pay it off sooner. There are other options. So I would use this high interest rate environment as negotiating fire to get hopefully a lower price is what I would do. And
Good.
Real quick, Corey, and I would look at different mortgage products. I don't think they're much better, but you might, adjustable rate mortgages might be better now because there is a little bit more risk there. So don't just get set on that 30-year or 15-year fixed. I would look at other mortgage products. And again, I would focus more on the price that you're paying.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. The next article that I have here is, should I take a $44,000 lump sum pension or keep a $423 monthly pension? This came from the Wall Street Journal, and the author that wrote it was given this option. Ultimately, collect a pension at age 65 of $423 a month, or take a lump sum now of $44,000.
Before we get into the math of that, I just want to hear emotionally from you, Corey, on this one. So let's flash forward. You're 65 years old, and someone offers you 44 grand or $423 a month forever. And I know you're a math guy and you're a financial advisor. So, but I'm curious. My wife asked me something about this similar the other day, but I'm curious, what would you choose just emotionally? Curious.
Lump sum.
Why?
So I can have control over the money.
Okay. All right, cool. Proceed. Go ahead. What else did you were going to say about the article?
Yes. So that's Corey's emotions about it. But the article really, and I think she did a good job of highlighting in there, really just the considerations. Basically, like, for example, if you take a monthly pension and that pension does not adjust for inflation, the buying power of that $400 a month, for example, is going to continue to be less over time as prices go up. On the flip side, right, there are some people that are enticed to take the lump sum option. It's a big check that they have access to, and they feel like that's money that they can go and spend. So the point that this really made is that ultimately you need to crunch the numbers. You need to understand what it means in the context of your financial plan. But really, the takeaway from it, as far as my concern, from my perspective, is that there's not a one size fits all decision, but this is probably something that more people will have the option to do, either from employers giving them a lump sum option at retirement, or for people who are still working but haven't started collecting a pension. Because with interest rates being higher, it can make more sense for companies to offer these buyouts to their employees.
And she suggested the annuity, right? The monthly payment.
Yeah, I didn't like what basically what she did is she went to an insurance company and said, if I take this lump sum and I invest it, how much money do I need to have in order to generate the same amount of income at age 65? But the point is, like, the thought there was, can I buy an annuity that will pay the same amount or more income than the pension? But back to the emotional question that you asked me, Jake, I would not take that lump sum so I can buy an annuity with it.
That's what she did?
That's the way that she did her research. That's how she crunched the numbers.
Is that what she did?
No.
Oh, did it say what she did?
Yes, she ultimately opted to take the lump sum, but she didn't talk about how she was going to invest it. But it was interesting because she did highlight, like 10 or 15 years ago, she had the same option, but the figures were different then. And I do think that she did a good job of highlighting that an offer like this later in life may have more clarity around what your financial situation looks like, what your financial plan looks like. So this decision for somebody who's 40 may be a lot different than it is for someone who's 60.
Let me go over how we do the math on this. So if this was a real situation, what I would do is I would take that $423 a month, and this is easier than the last math I just threw at you from that last article. You take $423 times 12, right? And that gets you $5,076. And you divide 44,000, the lump sum, divided by 5,076, Corey, and you get an 8.7% rate of return. So what that really tells you is that you would have to invest that lump sum, that 44 grand, and you would have to average 8.7% a year for the rest of your life in order to generate that $423 monthly pension, which is a tough hurdle to jump over. So in this scenario, and again, there was a lot of other factors that would go in, and this show is not advice, so don't take it that way. But in this scenario, I would suggest that that person might consider that monthly payment, especially if they had other 401k or other investment assets, because this is not a bad rate of return on that. Now, there are other risk factors and things that I don't want to get into today, but that's one way that if somebody's doing it on their own, they could hypothetically think about that. Now, you also have to remember that $423 might not have any survivorship benefits. So if something happens to you, that money could be gone potentially. Whereas the 44,000, your heirs would get whatever's left over. So good. I'm glad you shared this one, Corey, because this is something we talk about a lot with.
Yeah.
And pensions are winding down, but there's still a thing. It's still a thing a lot of clients have access to.
Yeah, and they did highlight for a lot of companies with interest rates being higher now that it's just more attractive for them to ultimately get those pensions off the books and pay people up front.
Right.
Okay.
All right, good. All right, so I got one here. Why advisors are going beyond charging only asset-based fees. So this article was in Barron's, and it talked about how traditionally, and most advisors, including us, we charge a percentage of the assets that we manage. Now, we are very passionate about this because we are actually investing the money. I think the problem with most advisors out there, Corey, is that they aren't investing the money. They're buying products with that money. And so clients, in essence, are being double charged, in my opinion. So we are very passionate about charging a percentage of the assets. We want to make more money when our clients make more money, and we want to make less money when our clients have less money. But it did say that more, they call them Henrys. These are high earners, not rich yet. So you can think of people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that make good salaries, but they don't have $3 or $4 million yet. That they are more accustomed to paying a hourly rate or a retainer fee. And I have a huge problem with hourly rates because attorneys charge that way a lot. And I think it's a ripoff to charge somebody an hourly rate. Because your advisor is a slow reader or a slow worker, you have to pay them more. I think that's garbage. What do you think, Corey?
I agree. Yeah, I don't know very many people that talk about how much they love to pay their attorneys by the hour. And I agree, but I also think that an alternative model for people, if there's someone who's charging a fee based on the value of the portfolio, they should be the one that's managing the assets. And if they're not, that's not the way that they should charge. I don't necessarily think that hourly is the right answer, but I do agree.
You're right. They could do a fixed fee. Like, look, it's $10,000 a year. I'm going to run financial planning, tax planning, budgeting. I'm going to tell you which mutual funds to buy, help you buy them, whatever. I don't think that's wrong. I just don't like the hourly rate. But again, we use the asset under management model because we're managing the assets, and we do all that in-house. So I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. The next article that I have here is from CNBC, and it is the average Social Security retirement benefit may grow by $57 per month in 2024, is what a new estimate finds. So I included this in here, Jake, because it's relevant for a lot of clients who are collecting Social Security or will be soon. It doesn't sound like a lot of money. It's obviously a much smaller percentage than we saw from 2021 to 2022. But I think the larger point there is, and what this article highlighted is that if you're on the fence about making a decision as far as Social Security goes, no one should feel rushed to go and start collecting their benefits so they can take advantage of any adjustments, because ultimately that's reflected in the benefits as well. But also there's the impact of Medicare Part B premiums and what that does to the Social Security cost of living adjustment. But the whole thing seems just a little weird to me, Jake, frankly, and that the government uses 3/4 from this year and 3/4 from last year to determine what the cost of living adjustment will be for next year. What do you think?
What do I think about what?
About that, about the way that the cost of living adjustment is calculated.
I think they have to use some standard metric. So I think I'm nervous that they keep giving raises and it's supposedly going to run out. That doesn't seem very responsible to me. I get it that inflation is still higher than their target, so there should be a raise. So I'm not saying they shouldn't, but I just think that they have a bigger problem than this cost of living adjustment. And they need to do some other major overhaul to Social Security, because theoretically, Corey, if they manage the money better, they could give bigger raises. How about that?
Right. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Yeah, they could manage the money better. They could, there's a lot of adjustments that, have been floated that they're looking at making. But I just looked at this and I thought the inflation adjustment for 2022 for people who are collecting Social Security was over 8%. And it's projected to be 3.2% for 2024. And just my opinion is that I just struggled to line those two things up. It doesn't seem to me like inflation has come down that much in that short period of time, but based upon the metrics, I guess it has.
Yeah, it has. I mean, inflation's gone from 9 to 3%.
Right.
So I think this is pretty lined up. So what do you not think about? I mean, that's what they say inflation is, right? 3% now.
Well, yeah, yes. I think that it feels to me like this is just a feeling. It feels to me like inflation has continued to push prices higher, more so than at a 3% rate, based upon anything that anybody's paying for that's driven up by inflation. Like at the grocery store, perfect example. Do you think that groceries have gone up 3% in the last year? You think that's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I think they went up 9%.
You're right, though. They have to use something.
Right. They have to use that. But again, I think there's a bigger problem. I think Social Security money has been mismanaged. And if they actually managed it correctly, they probably could get bigger raises. So
I agree.
Without running out. So anyways, that's a good one, though. It's very pertinent, very relevant for our clients. And so when do they say, I know you said in here, Medicare gets announced in November.
Yeah, so Social Security is October. Medicare Part B will be November.
So we'll find out soon. It's probably going to be 3%, which again is better than nothing. You got to remember, for years it was basically zero.
Yeah, 2.6% was the average over the last 20 or 30 years.
Right. So it's
even
above,
that 3% is higher. Yeah.
It's not a lot, but it's above the average. And I think everybody has their own personal inflation. So again, you may be thinking people are paying more, but I don't think that. But again, maybe I'm disconnected from some of those things. So again, because I have my own spending habits, and I haven't noticed. I noticed it maybe originally, but I haven't noticed it since then.
Sure.
So anyways, good topic. All right, Corey, you're going to love this. And Luke, if you could put up the chart on here, I got a chart for you. I'm surprised. I don't think you have any charts this week.
No.
I thought you were going to have a chart every week. Thought you're going to have
I'll get back on it next week. We're going to get back on track.
So this is a good one. Americans talk one way about the economy and act another. That happens all the time, actually. So people don't align with, anyways, what they say or think. So this one is from Yahoo Finance, and it says, consumers keep spending as their confidence in the economy declines. So the green line, and again, this chart up on the screen here, the green line are basically retail sales, and the orange line is consumer confidence. So you can see consumer confidence is dropping off here at the end of this chart. but retail sales continue to grow. And I thought this was a good quote from a French writer, Oliver Magny. He once put, "If you are happy, you must be stupid. On the other hand, if you complain, you must be smart." So Jerome Powell is quoted in this article. Corey says he thinks overall households are in good shape. Surveys are a different thing. So surveys are showing dissatisfaction. And I think a lot of that is just people hate inflation, just like you, Corey. They hate it.
Mm-hmm.
But he continued, at the same time, they're spending money. Their behavior is not exactly what you would expect from the surveys. So the takeaway from this, Corey, is that unemployment remains low, labor market stress appears modest, and real wages are on the rise, especially, as Powell noted, for lower income workers. So I think, again, those people that have those lower paying jobs are getting bigger raises. So even though they're negative on the economy and inflation, they keep spending the same or more. Corey, what do you think?
Yeah, this is, I have a lot of thoughts. It's really interesting, and it makes perfect sense. Like you set it up, Jake, people do it all the time. And you're right. It seems like, generally speaking, what this data is showing us is just, anecdotally what I've experienced from talking with people. But yeah, I think that and I think it's a positive that people that are, earning lower wages are earning more money. But I think, to the point about inflation, my feeling towards it is it's unclear to me why the intent would be to manufacture or create inflation. Like, why are we actively trying to do that? Which, for the better part of 10 years before the pandemic, the Federal Reserve talked constantly about how we needed higher inflation. We need more inflation. Inflation too low is dangerous. And I just, that then and now still in some ways, like, I understand supply and demand, the economic impact, but unclear to me why we would want to manufacture inflation.
You have a good question, Corey. You have to have inflation, because if you don't have inflation, you have deflation, and deflation is far more harming than inflation. So we want inflation, because if you have deflation, that basically is the opposite, right? So that means that prices go down over time. And if prices go down over time, people stop spending money and they stop stimulating the economy, because they just wait and everything will lock up and freeze. People will stop buying homes. They'll stop buying groceries. They'll stop buying cars. All of it will stop, and it'll be horrible, absolutely horrible. So you want inflation, Corey. So the Fed needs inflation, because that's how you fuel growth and expansion and more income and bigger. Because you got to think inflation's a good thing, because everybody had the net worths of people are way higher than they were 50 years ago, right? There's more millionaires today than there ever have been. And that's because of inflation. Now, I guess conceptually, you could say if prices just stayed the same, that would be all fine and dandy too, but it doesn't work that way. Things are either going to go down or they're going to go up. And so I'd much rather them go up at a moderate level than go down. Because I'm telling you, if they go down, it's going to be far worse. That's when you have people, then if nobody's buying those goods and services, companies that make those goods and services will fire people. And then you'll have unemployment, and you'll have homelessness, and you'll have all this. It'd be horrible. Have I convinced you why we need inflation? We need inflation.
I know that we need inflation. I do not. You haven't totally sold me yet, Jake. So we'll have to talk more about it.
Well, what do you mean?
You have not fully sold me on, like, I would say that, how about this? If you walked into a grocery store and walked through the aisles and told everyone, look, inflation's actually a good thing, what do you think people would say to you?
I would explain the exact, like, they don't want, because I'm saying, look, if the bananas were cheaper every week, you would stop buying them. And then there would be no more bananas.
Yeah.
Because the banana farmer would go out of business, because no one would buy his or her bananas.
I don't disagree with you there.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that the rate of I don't think that inflation that exists in the way that it is captured is accurate. I don't think that there's a clean and simple way for it to be reported to us. But I think over the last several decades, while inflation has been really low, house prices, higher education, and healthcare expenses have all just basically grown at this rate. Like, we've experienced a lot of inflation in those specific areas for the last few decades. And those are the areas that the government subsidizes the most.
Okay. I agree that the tracking of it is weird
It is.
and not perfect. And I don't think it can be perfect. And I'm not on the government side here necessarily, but I could see that where education's gone up way higher. Well, that's the issue, right? Education and healthcare have gone up higher than inflation. So that, to me, that's a whole different discussion. We're just talking about inflation fundamentally.
Agreed. And in that regards, healthy inflation is better than deflation. And we agree on
I
that.
convinced
Absolutely.
you.
We
Good.
agree on that.
Let's move on. What's
All
the
right,
next
good
one?
idea. It's good though. It's good. Let's see here. We've got the next one is an article from Barron's: actors impersonating federal agents called seniors, and about 12% handed over sensitive info. This talked about basically just a study that was done where there was 600 to 700 senior citizens that were contacted over the phone fraudulently. Now, this was done intentionally, but they were basically contacted to see how people gave information over the phone. And really what they concluded was that about 16% of the people that they called engaged earnestly with the person who was calling them. And the average age of the phone recipient was 85 years old. So the bigger point here is that there are seniors who have provided that information over the phone fraudulently. And from a diligence or vigilance standpoint, recognize that you should ask for and wait for information from someone if they're calling you on the phone. You should not just assume that somebody who calls you and says that they're with the government and needs your information is with the government, and you should give them your information.
Yeah, this is scary. They did a special on 60 Minutes on this, Corey. I don't know if you saw it, but with AI now, they can actually, they could clone your voice, Corey, and have them call your mom and it sound like you on the phone. Isn't that crazy? And say, Mom, I'm, Cassie and I are stranded in Sonoma. I need you to wire me, $1,000 to get a new plane ticket. And it would sound just like you.
My mom would say, what?
Right. Good. Good for her.
Yes.
I'm just saying that, yes, I think it's almost come to a point where you don't even want to answer your phone. If you don't know, and again, I don't know this, but maybe they could even clone your number. So you just have to be very careful and fact check. And this is good. I'm glad you brought attention to this. I'm glad 60 Minutes did a story on it because it's horrible and they prey on the elderly. And you just, if you know someone or you yourself are in your 70s, 80s, 90s, you got to be careful because there's people coming for your money. And it's a real thing and it's happening all the time. All the time it's happening.
Yep.
All right, good. Good one, Corey. All right. My next one here is millions of people see staying home and cleaning as their idea of a good time. How about this one, Corey? When times are uncertain, people like to do things that allow them to exercise control, is what this quoted in this article. And this guy, Russell, or girl, I forget. If you feel you can keep your home neat and tidy, it makes you feel secure. Also, Corey, cleaning videos for some watchers elicit what is known as ASMR, or autonomous sensory meridian response, which is a tingling sensation often felt in the scalp and down the spine when hearing certain sounds. The hum of a vacuum cleaner doesn't give me that feeling. The gentle hiss of spray paint, the soft whoosh of a brush, and the peeling of masking tape are all amplified in a recent video as this person in the article tackles a damp patch of wall in his bathroom in northern England. So my question to you, Corey, is, does staying home and cleaning, is that a good time for you?
No. No, but if there's anybody who's watching who it is, you're welcome to come over.
Right.
If cleaning up's a good time.
Well, I forget what some of these people are called, like clean influencers or something, where these cleaning companies now are paying them, like social media influencers, they're paying these clean influencers money to promote their products. So it's a whole thing, like on TikTok, and cleaning hacks and tips that these TikTok stars using these products will show you how to clean your house better. Now, I will say, doing certain, like for example, this weekend, I've had these pictures on the floor of my basement, Corey, for I don't know how long.
Yeah.
It's of like the Royals parade, down in Union Station. They're cool like sports, but I just have had, I don't go to my basement that often. I've had no interest in hanging them.
Those are still on the floor?
Not anymore.
I know, I remember those, Jake.
Not anymore. Rachel and I were supposed to go for a walk and it started downpouring. So our dog likes to go in the basement when he gets scared. So I'm down there and I'm like, well, I'm doing nothing. I'm going to hang these pictures. And it actually, so that's not really cleaning, but doing a little home project like that made me feel really good afterwards. So I kind of get where this is going, but I don't know about, I mean, vacuum cleaner is just annoying to me. Spray paint, I don't really care. A whoosh of a brush, maybe. Masking tape, not at all. Do any of those, have you ever got a tingling sensation from hearing that stuff?
In my scalp down my spine? No, I have not. I think that, one thing though that's interesting, Jake, and I don't remember where I read this or where I even heard this, but someone made the suggestion that people that work with their brains relax with their hands, meaning people that have work where, you're very engaged mentally, that people do like, though that type of person likes to relax with their hands, which could be cleaning, it could be working outside, whatever it might be, sort of not, using the brain functioning at the same level. So that makes a little bit of sense to me. And like, I know that I get a lot of enjoyment out of working outside in the yard. Like if we have actually, and it doesn't really matter to me whether it's hot or if it's a really nice day, I enjoy doing that. I get a sense of satisfaction that comes from it. But the hum of the vacuum cleaner doesn't send the tingle down my spine, unfortunately.
All right, Corey, bring us home. We got only time for one more. Run out of time here. What's your last one?
Last one here is from Kiplinger. How long to keep tax returns and records? I thought this was, I actually wanted to ask you about this, Jake, how you approach this, but basically as a general rule, the article says that you should keep your tax returns for at least 3 years from the due date of your return. That's generally how long the IRS has to question items on the return and bill you for any additional tax. The article did expand beyond that though, to note that there is a lot of other information that you would want to keep beyond 3 years. So if you have records as it pertains to your real estate, if you've invested money into your house for cost basis purposes, basically keeping those files. The same thing goes for securities, contributions you've made to a retirement account. So I felt like by the time I got to the end of this article, that 3 years was the suggestion, except for everything else that you should keep forever. So Jake, I just wanted to ask you, how long do you keep your tax records?
I don't. I rely on my CPA to have those hopefully filed away. We have a share file. So I don't like keep them in a box or something like a lot of people do in their home. I have them digitally on that share file, but I pay my accountant a lot of money. And I'm not saying he's not worth it. But Corey, frankly, I defer that to him and I rely on him to keep them. Right or wrong, I pay them a lot of money, but it is on a share file. So I would think now because of the cloud or whatever, I could probably keep them for as long as I keep him as my CPA. So I'm probably going to just keep him as long as that file will allow for, because it's digital, it's easy. But, again, I rely on my CPA. I pay them a lot of money and he's worth every penny that I pay him, but I don't personally have a filing system at home for him, or if I do, it's really old.
Yeah, I was just curious because I actually get this question, fairly often, and I don't, my answer is typically that I've kept it all and I have it all organized because I would rather have it than not have it. But I just don't know whether or not that's what I should suggest or recommend to other people. So that is what this article expanded on some.
Yeah, it's good. So again, for people out there, I think 6 years is appropriate. If you're in, a lot of our clients only have paper copies, which is fine, as long as you have them in a secure place, right? That's obviously locked away and kept dry, so it doesn't get flood damage or something. If something crazy happens, that's fine. And again, I would encourage you in today's age, though, to scan them in and have a digital copy as well. And if you're worried about the cloud, put it on a thumb drive, right? As a locked, secure thumb drive. I mean, that's how they stored cryptocurrency for many years. So you could get a locked thumb drive and store it that way if you wanted to be secure with it. So, but good, you should keep them, I think, for at least 6 years.
I have every return since we've worked together, Jake, going back to 2010.
Good for you, Corey.
Yep.
Track it. Well, good. Well, thank you again, Corey, for joining me. It's good to have that little debate on inflation. Hopefully I convinced you that inflation is important and it is good. And thank you all for tuning in. Our subscriber count continues to grow. Like, share our content. This show's purpose is to enhance financial literacy at scale. So the only way we can do that is if you out there share and like it. So thank you again for tuning in, and we hope all of you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.